Hello, today we continue our journey about isomorphic application, and after we covered in the previous tutorial authentication, I would like to talk probably about the most important issue, and it was the main reason why we switched to React, and this is isomorphic rendering or server-side rendering, universal. Our application went through several changes. I can show this is home page, and we can switch to tutorials. This data is taken from a database, particularly from Firebase, and despite the fact that our authentication sessions and users is saved to MongoDB, I would like just to say that it is with middlewares, with Redux technology, it's pretty easy abstract away the particular implementation of our persistent layer. And the most important, so this is our tutorials, and we hardware load, and if I take a look on page sources, you can see that information from database is present in the view, and it is a proof that isomorphic application works, and data really come pre-rendered from server with HTML response. Also, I would like to show that the main problem of isomorphic React application, it was responsive approach, that because on server is not possible to get particular width of a screen, it's very hard to do it correctly, and if you try to work with inline styles, particularly with such third-party application like Radium, you probably got to the situation where React notifies you about the difference about server and client-side rendered React application. But if I make, so you can see, if you take a look about this sign in application, you can see that it is responsive. It depends on the width, and if I hard reload, there is no flashing of incorrectly responsive rendered application, so everything works. And it works. It doesn't work with inline styles. That's why in Upbar we have a less styles, and less styles is conditionally required. And inside of this less files, if we go here, and if I will find menu item, and inside of Upbar right, you can see that for media query phone, and this is a less variable, and menu item will be invisible, and menu item icon, it's got to be block, and the logic is clear, everything works, and it works with isomorphic. I guess with such a solution, all main requirements are met. And I would like further in this tutorial just to create a short overview about the project. As you know that, and particularly this idea with inline styles, it was discovered by guys who created it quiz, and we took their boilerplate, but it went through several changes. It's a brilliant application, and we learned a lot looking over their code, and I would like just to show what we changed in order to create it easier to work with. So first of all, one of the advantage of Redux is having this Redux store. It's very useful to work, and debugging became much easier. And this is the main reason probably why we decided not to switch to relay. This alone multiplies your productivity by 3 at least. Initially this application didn't have it, but it's very easy to do. I created compose middleware, and inside the configure store I just check in if this extensions, and I'm talking about extension in Google Chrome, is present. I just added it like middlewares. It works perfectly. If you need to turn it off on production, it's here. The second part that went through significant changes, it was data fetching. For my humble opinion, inside the Redux, it is the best to treat data fetching through promises middlewares. And if you take a look on this promise middleware, what happens? Everything starts, and we're talking about our tutorials page. And you can see that because this data comes to our store from the database, they have to be in the store. And everything starts from actions. And we have article, and I explained why we don't have user in previous tutorial. And inside of this article, one of the action, it contains this field promise. And as you know, inside the Redux, the only requirement that each action should have type, but there is no opinion about the whole object. And we have this field that return promise. I'm using Axios just to be universal because it works on, I guess, of Netscape 7.0. It's 10 years a browser, but you can use fetch. And because our middleware comes earlier than root reducers, it is very easy to distract our action and check if this action doesn't have field promise, we just go further. But if it does, we come here. And initially, this article type run this article get type of action. Promise middleware intercepts it, and there are 3 continuation. It's possible to successfully get data, and request and failure. And request in this case is just to signal in to our application that request is rendered. So you can show some loader icon or something else. And when promise, if promise is successfully resolved, we run our next with our articles and notify success, and the same for the error. In my opinion, it's much easier way of fetching data rather than treating them with action creators. Another change, and it is connected to universal approach, that inside of this method fetch components data, and we are now on server. We run this method fetch components data inside of match. And match, this is React router method. It gives us this render props. And the render props components contains each component that depends on data. And these components extracted from root hierarchy. So if I open routes and routes that coming from React, and if we take a look on this article pages container, we can see that in order to open this page, we need to render up, we need to render main layout, and we need to render articles page container. And if we switch to articles page container, you can see that we connected to the store. But another significant change that application went through, that instead of wrapping with additional components, it would be much easier to import actions and run this method, get articles if needed. So when server-side rendering is going on, before it is response with HTML, it is necessary to fetch component data. So inside of this method, what we do, we just go over these components, over hierarchy, and choose those components that has this method need. And if it has, it will be added first to the array, and then this array will be given to promise all. And as you know, the promise all is resolved when each promise inside of promises array is resolved. So in our server-side application, when we are inside of then promise handler, we already have our store with data. So when render to string is happening, our store is already has data, and we can get initial state from here, and that initial state is added here. So when application is bootstrap on client, this data will be prefetched. And if you take a look inside our actions, that you can see that this method just return promise, but we run this method. We check whether our state has articles. In other words, there is a conditionally that you can start server-side our application from this page. It means that in this case our data will be prefetched, or you can start from home page, and the home page doesn't have these articles. You can see that in this case it's empty. But if I go to tutorials, this is where I should show loader. Our data exists, but it will be absent on, because it's added, but data is taken on the client right now. It's still added to that initial state, but we are not getting data on the client, and it means that this method will dispatch our action only if this request is executed, only if our initial store doesn't have these articles. And this is the main difference how we changed their application. In my opinion, this approach a little bit simpler. So I guess we covered the main part, and take a look, use it in your working flow, and check for our other tutorials. Thank you, bye.